Good day, students. How are you today? In the course of our other class, we talked about simultaneous equation and different methods of solving simultaneous equation. But before I proceed with what we have for today, I would like us to have an overview of what we were taught in the other class. Talked about different methods of solving simultaneous equation, the substitution method, the elimination method, and the graphical method. Alright, in today's class we are going to look into the topic quadratic equation and the subtopic the use of general formula for solving quadratic equation. So by the end of today's class you will be able to define quadratic equation. Secondly, you will be able to appreciate the use of quadratic equation in real life situation. And on the third point, you need to solve problems in quadratic equation using the general formula for solving quadratic equation. Today's class, our video is going to be very short, so I believe that you will give me your audience as we proceed together. Alright, let's go into detail. What is quadratic equation? What is quadratic equation? Let's go by the definition. A quadratic equation is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. Where the a, the b, c are the numerals, and the highest power of the unknown x is 2. So I say a quadratic equation is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. So this is the form of a quadratic equation where the a, the b, the c are the numerals and the highest power of the unknown, which is the x, is 2. So the x here are called the unknowns, while the a, the b, and the c are called the numerals. Alright, please don't forget that the general form of quadratic equation is of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. Alright, let's look at different methods of solving quadratic equation. Methods of solving quadratic equations. The first method we have of solving quadratic equation is the factorization method. Factorization method. Then the second method of solving quadratic equation is the use of completing the square method. The square method. While the third one is the use of general formula method. General formula method. Then we also have another method of solving quadratic equation called the graphical method. Graphical method. Alright, based on the objective we really want to actualize, I think we have to deal with the point 3. Then in our subsequent classes we have to touch the point 1, the 2, and the 4 respectively. But in the course of today's class, we are going to talk about only the point 3, which is the use of general formula method of solving quadratic equation. Alright, in today's class I'm going to show you the way to derive the formula method of solving quadratic equation. Once you are able to derive the formula, try to internalize the formula so that once you are given an equation which is quadratic in nature, you can easily compute your values in the formula to get your roots. Remember that the answer gotten after solving your quadratic equation is called your root. Alright, let's go into the derivation of the formula method of solving quadratic equation. Remember that a quadratic equation is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. Alright, the first step we have to take is that, remember this is the right hand side of this very equation. Y at this side is the left hand side of the equation. So we now have to take the c, which is one of the numerals, to the right hand side of the equation. Now we have ax squared plus bx equal to minus c. So the second step we ought to take, or we have to take, is to divide through both the right hand side of the equation and the left hand side of the equation by the coefficient of x squared. And what is the coefficient of x squared? That is a. Now we divide both sides of the equation by the coefficient of x squared, which is a. So that this a will cancel out the a, leaving you out with the x squared plus bx all over a equal to minus c over a. Alright, we've worked for the coefficient of the x squared, and we are able to get to this very area. Now let's also work for the coefficients of the x here. And the coefficient of x here is b over a. Let's write it out for our simple retention. B over a is the coefficient of x here, b over a. Now let's look for the half of b over a. The half of b over a should give us b over 2a. So when we now square the half of b over a, b over 2a, when we now square it out, what do we have? We have b squared over 4a squared. Alright, having known this, we now have to add b over 2a all squared at the both sides of the equation, both on the left hand side of the equation and on the right hand side of the equation respectively. So remember, as we are adding it, we have to relegate this. That is, we have to remove this very point and just utilize the x squared and this respectively. So let's go together. We now have x squared plus, we now put b over 2a all squared, b over 2a all squared is equal to minus c over a plus b over 2a all squared. Alright, having gotten to this very point, let's proceed with the normal solving. x squared plus b over 2a all squared is equal to minus c over a plus this. When we open up the bracket, we have b into 2 will be b squared all over 4a squared. Alright, the next thing we have to do is that we need to find the LCM of the denominators of this and this. So let's go together. x squared plus b over 2a all squared is equal to the LCM of the denominators, which are a and 4a squared. They have the same LCM in common, which is 4a squared. So a divide 4a squared will give us out with 4a. Alright, so 4a times minus c is minus 4ac. We put our plus, and 4a squared divides 4a squared will leave us out with 1, and 1 times b squared remains b squared. Alright, having gotten to this very point, what next are we to do? The next step we have to take, remember that this x contains square, and the b over 2a also contains square. So we put the square together in a same bracket. Now we have x plus b over 2a all square. What we tried to do here was to put the square in the same bracket so as to enable us to derive the formula correctly. This is now equal to minus 4ac plus b squared all over 4a squared. Alright, having gotten to this very point, what next are we to do? Now we need to find the square roots of both the left hand side of the equation and the right hand side of the equation. And to find the square roots, this is what we have: x plus b over 2a all squared is equal to the total square root of minus 4ac plus b squared all over 4a squared. Remember, mathematically, the square roots can only cancel the square. So leaving us out with x plus b over 2a, which is now equal to, it's somehow difficult to find the square root of the numerator here. So we now have to segregate it a little. So we now have square root of minus 4ac plus b squared all over. The square root of 4a squared will now give us 2a. Alright, let's proceed from this very point. Remember, we have x plus b over 2a, which is equal to this. So we now have to make x the subject. And making x the subject, we have x is now equal to, remember, once we put the square roots on this side, we have our plus or minus at this side also. Now x is equal to, when b over 2a crosses to this side, it becomes minus b over 2a. Minus b over 2a plus or minus square root of minus 4ac plus b squared all over 2a. So what next are we to do? Very simple. We need to find the LCM of the denominator here and the denominator here, which are 2a, 2a respectively. Now we have x is equal to, the LCM of the both is 2a. 2a divided 2a remains 1, and 1 times minus b will give us minus b. Plus or minus 2a divided 2a is still 1, and 1 times the square root of all this will still remain the square root of minus 4ac plus b squared. Alright, having gotten to this point, what next are we to realize? We've gotten the formula. So this is the formula we term the general formula. This is what we call the general formula for solving quadratic equation. Alright, at this very point, we can still rearrange this very equation so as to have a perfect rearrangement of it. Here now, this is our x is equal to minus b plus or minus square root of this minus 4ac. We can easily put our b squared and now put minus 4ac all over 2a. So this, both this and this, they are the same. Alright, let's look at some examples of quadratic equation and how we can easily deduce an equation that is quadratic in nature. Alright, remember that quadratic equation is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. So we can easily deduce an equation which is quadratic in nature by just, once we have something like this, 2x squared plus the b and the c, they are the numerals, so we can have 3x plus 3, which is equal to 0. So number 2 you can easily deduce a quadratic equation of your form. We can still have something like x squared plus 2x minus 35 equal to 0. This is also an example of quadratic equation. In this very part, the coefficient of x squared is 1, so it coincides with the a. The 2 also coincides with the b, while the minus 5 coincides with the c. And sometimes this c, we do call it the third term or the constant, while the b, sometimes we do call it the second term. And the a also, sometimes we do call it the fourth term. Thank you very much. So let's use this very general formula for solving quadratic equation to compute the values of this kind of quadratic equation in it to find our roots. Remember, I said that the root of a quadratic equation is the answers you got after solving your quadratic equation. Alright. Let's use an example of this very form we deduced from New Age Maths, page 65, exercise 2a. And the question was, find the roots of the given quadratic equation x squared plus 2x minus 35 using the general method of solving quadratic equation. Alright, let's solve together. It's very, very simple. Once you are able to internalize this formula, you can easily bring it forth, compute your values, and find your roots. Remember, I told us prior that the roots of quadratic equations are the answers you get after solving your quadratic equation. Let's go together. So what are we given? We are given the question x squared plus 2x minus 35 equal to 0. And what are we required to do? We are required to find the roots. Find the roots of the quadratic equation. Alright, then let's go into the solution properly. So we first list the equation, which is x squared plus 2x minus 35 equal to 0. So this is the equation. And the second step we have to take is to deduce our formula, which is the general formula method of solving quadratic equation. And the formula says that x is equal to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Remember, our a, which is the first term, is the coefficient of x squared, which is 1. Then our b, which is the second term, which is the coefficient of x, which is 2. Then our c, which is the third term or the constant, is also minus 35. So let's compute these very values in this very equation to know what actually will be our product, which is the x, which are the roots of the equation. Alright, so let's go together. X is equal to minus, what is our b, which is 2, plus or minus square root of b squared, which is 2 squared, minus 4 times, what is our a, which is 1, times what is our c. Our c is minus 35, all over 2 times what is our a, 1. So now we have minus 2 plus or minus square root of 2 squared is 2 times 2, which is 4. Minus 4 times 1 is minus 4. And minus 4 times minus 35 will give us plus 140. Alright, having gotten to this point, all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Alright, we stop at this very point. So what do we have now? We have that x is now equal to minus 2 plus or minus square root of 4 plus 140 is 144 all over 2. Alright, so what next are we to do? Let's continue evaluating. So we now have x is minus 2 plus or minus square root of 144 will give us 12 over 2. And now we now have x is equal to minus 2 plus 12 over 2. So our x is either this or our x is equal to minus 2 minus 2. We now go for the minus 12 all over 2. At this point, minus 2 plus 12 will give us 10 over 2. Or our x is minus 2 minus 12 will give us minus 14 all over 2. So our x is now 10 divided by 2 will give us 5. Or our x is minus 14 divided by 2 will give us minus 7. Therefore, the roots of the equation are x is equal to 5 and minus 7. So our x is equal to 5 and minus 7. Alright, I will give you an example so as to evaluate you and your ability to use this very general formula for solving quadratic equation in computing your values. Remember that is very, very crucial whenever you are given an equation of this very form. What do you have to do? First of all, try to bring out the general formula for solving quadratic equation. Once you are able to bring it out, list your numerals, which is the a, the b, and the c respectively. Then start to compute for the values into the formula. Once you compute the values into the formula, you will be able to arrive at the answers. And remember that the answers gotten after solving your quadratic equation is called the roots of the equations. Alright, I will give you an evaluation on what to solve, and by the next class you will be able to give me the answer, and we are going to solve it together before we proceed into other methods of solving quadratic equation. Alright, and we've succeeded in solving a particular equation which is quadratic in nature using the general formula for solving quadratic equation. Now, I really want to know your ability in solving by using the same general formula for solving quadratic equation. So I would like to evaluate you. Once you head to this very textbook, look for page 115, exercise 3A in New Age Maths. Alright, once you reach there, grab this very question, which is 3x squared plus 4x minus 2 equal to 0. So solve it using the general formula for solving quadratic equation. In our next class, I'm going to give you some corrections, and at the same time we go to another thing which we have, which are the other methods of solving quadratic equation. Alright, let's just have an overview of what we've just learned today. In today's class, we talked about quadratic equation, and we said that a quadratic equation is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. And we said that the a, the b, the c are called the numerals. And also we say that a quadratic equation is an equation also that has the highest power of the unknown to be 2. And we also stated that a quadratic equation is an equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. And we were able to derive the general form of quadratic equation, which we got x equal to minus b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Try to gain mastery of the derivation of this very formula, and try to internalize this very formula so that once you are given an equation to solve, you will be able to compute your values into this very equation to have your roots. And I told us that the roots of a quadratic equation are the answers you got after solving your quadratic equation, and they are paired answer. What I mean by paired answer is that up to 2 answers. That means your x or your a, depending on the variable, must have 2 answers. Now, having known this, at the same time, I want you to solve this very assignment that by next class you will give me what your answer is so that we can do the correction together. Alright. Someone may ask and say, what are the uses of quadratic equation in real life situation, which is one of our objectives, that we will be able to appreciate the use of quadratic equation in real life situation. What are the uses of quadratic equation in real life situation? Number 1, quadratic equation is used in formulating the speed of an object. Actually, this is mostly used by the physicists during their calculations and their different areas of observations. So quadratic equation is used in formulating the speed of an object. Also, quadratic equation could be used by the economists in determining the product's profits. That is another thing. Quadratic equation is used by the economists in determining the product's profit. Alright, having known this, I wish you good luck as we adjourn for the class of today. By next class, we are going to go into other details. Thank you very much.